I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, all are present with the exception of Enrique this evening. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So made.
By Stacy, second?
Second.
By Jonathan. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. We have one item on our agenda this evening under new business, the certification of the 2019 payable 2020 levy. Julie.
Good evening, Board Chair Shimmick, Dr. Stallo, and board members. Tonight we're going to talk a little bit about the 19 pay 20 preliminary levy certification. We're going to talk about the levy calendar, basic school funding. We talk about this every year, all the factors contributing to the changes in the levy, the certification itself, and a little bit of graphic analysis. We talked about this a little bit before, how we certify the levy now. The final certification is in December. Property owners pay taxes for the whole calendar year of 2020. And then, but the district recognizes that revenue for the 2021 school year. So what we're doing now is actually for next school year as we move forward. The authority for school levies, it either needs to be set by state formula, the legislature makes those decisions, or our voters approve any changes in our tax levy. We are authorized to take our total revenue minus our property taxes, and it's the remaining is state aid, about a little over, and you saw it in the audit, 70% of our revenue is state aid. Some factors impacting and our tax changes, any issues driven by state level decisions, so anything at the legislative level, any changes in that area. There weren't a lot this last year. Issues determined by district voters, and as you know, in 2017 we had a referendum. That there hasn't been any changes with that, and then any local factors such as real estate, market, how that is doing, any property improvements, those types of things. What's included is voter-approved referendums, levies set by the legislature, and any authority by the state based on our local need. And we will talk about some changes in that area as well. Our adjusted net tax capacity has increased 6.4%, and our referendum market value has increased 7.5%. You can see those are some of the biggest increases that we've had over the past several years in both of the areas of our adjusted net tax capacity and our referendum market value analysis. And we show you both of those because taxes are calculated for different areas of the levy differently. So referendum market value would be anything on the referendum. Other areas would be on the whole district. Referendum excludes ag land and seasonal homeowner. And so only part of our levy is based on referendum market value. The rest is on adjusted net tax capacity. Our enrollment history trends, as you know, much of our levy certification is based on enrollment. We do have a slight increase in our enrollment for 2019-2020, and we do project forward from that as well. Our preliminary levy certification, the actual general fund levy is going down a 0.25%. And so you'll see a negative 44,000. The areas I want to really talk about, the local optional, that is a change in the legislature this last year, changed, this is the second time they've done this, and the change in the local optional. If you look at our local optional and about 5 items down, the levy referendums, those numbers flip-flop a little bit, 1.9% or $1.9 million increase in local optional and a decrease in our levy referendum. And the reason for that is because the legislature said they're taking an additional $300 from our operating levy and qualifying that as local optional levy. So recently our taxpayers approved a total operating referendum of $924. And so now if you look at what our operating levy is, it's $624. And that is because the legislature approved taking $300 of that and earmarking it as local optional. So for districts who didn't have anything more or any money in a operating referendum, they received $300. And so that's how that works. So you don't really have any choices in that. Again, that's one of those legislative changes that you don't have a choice, but that's what that looks like for our district. And another area I'd like to point out is our leased facilities towards the bottom. That's gone down because we're no longer leasing for the ALC. And our achievement and integration levy has increased. We talked about that a little bit as we worked through the budget process for this year, that we would want to start utilizing some of those funds. We've asked for about 400,000 of our 800,000, about half of it, of our allowable allocation. Of that $400,000, $100,000 is basically levy. The remainder is aid. So it's a nice option to have, that we get a lot more aid than levy in this case. A lot of our other programs that we have is mainly levy. And so in this one area of our levy, it's mainly aid instead of levy. So you'll see that is an increase over previous years. Other than that, everything has remained pretty much the same. And so you can see we actually have a decrease of about $44,000 in our general fund levy. If we move on to the other areas, community service fund as part of the levy, that is increasing. Even though the dollar amount isn't large, it appears like a large percentage, but most of that is our extended day disabled increase and trying to cover our costs for special ed students in our extended day programming. And then the debt service fund, there is an increase there as well to pay for our building bonds and long-term facility debt service, so those two areas. But overall, our levy is going up 1.88%. What I usually do is ask the board to certify the maximum at this time, so in case there's any adjustments in the levy that haven't occurred yet, at the state level, that they be allowed to happen in case there's any small adjustments. Last year we did see an adjustment because of a issue with the Southwest Metro allocation, and so there was a small adjustment that was allowed to happen. If we certify a dollar amount, that wouldn't have been able to happen, and we would see it on this year's levy certification. What also needs to happen, if we certify the maximum, you'll see at the final levy certification that it'll probably go down from the 1.88, because you'll see the adjustment by refinancing our bonds and the lease. So those two amounts will go down for the final. They're not showing in here yet because we haven't made those decisions. I mean, we haven't received those bids yet. Any questions? I do have one more slide here just showing how much of our total levy, 62% is voter approved, 14% is local discretion, and 25% is determined by the state. So those local discretion areas are like the integration to decide to levy for that. That would be part of that local discretion and those areas. I do want to show you the 10-year levy history. You can see the year of 17-18 where that is a large increase based on the approval of the bond and the referendum. Operating referendum, and then again we're back down to that a little under 2% right now, but I anticipate it'll be around 1.15 1.2% if those refinancing goes through as predicted. Okay.
Questions? Stacy?
Just a couple, just to kind of go over one little thing that you're talking about, the local optional and the switch over from the $300 per year.
Right.
That the legislature did. So as a taxpayer, when I'm looking at my form, sorry, I'm trying to get to that page. Is there gonna be a shift basically on the line that shows like certain amount of dollars down on this, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And then it's gonna be, it's basically a wash, right?
It'll be a wash. It'll be a
whatever
flip.
dollars they're contributing, that proportion on their,
I'd have to look, I'd have to,
I know what you're
To
saying, but then
verify
the
for
levy
sure.
would come down, you know, what they've supported as referendum levy, that will come down by a certain percentage that the other regular state aid would go up, correct?
the other general levies.
General, yeah,
levies,
right.
correct.
Okay.
I do believe that's how it will work. I
Yeah.
can't guarantee that. I'd
No, I
have to
know, but
really
I-
look
I
at that to make sure that that,
So
but
the
I do think.
taxpayer, I mean, has an idea of what's kind of happening. And then, the 1.88%,
Yes.
as a total, for our average taxpayer, is that gonna be much of an
Well,
increase?
if you go back to these areas here, our referendum market analysis, or the adjusted net tax capacity and our referendum tax capacity, both are going up 6.4%
Right.
increase and 7.5. So when you spread
That out?
that increase of 1.88% across all of those properties, most people will see either, unless they have a large increase in their personal home value,
Right,
most people will see a decrease of school taxes
Okay.
on theirs.
so most people will see a decrease.
And depending on their personal
Yeah, well, unless
property.
they've improved their property
Unless
by
they have
$1
improved their
million or
property
something.
or their valuation of their
Yeah.
property has increased substantially.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And I think you can see, we do have a history of having low increases if we look at this.
Great,
So we haven't had since 2010, 11, and I have data from before that, of anything over 4.7 is the largest we've had besides the 1 year that we've had the vote.
well, I think the thing that publicly comes out here, a lot of times that there's confusion on, is that, oh, you're raising the levy. Well, just because they're raising the levy, the average taxpayer is actually probably gonna pay less money. Because we have more students, so obviously our levy's gonna go, you know what I mean, there's,
We have more property value to
property
spread
value,
the levy
yeah.
across, and that's what that, how
right,
that
the
works.
value, right, the value, so, I
Right.
mean, it's increasing, so obviously the levy
As
has
long
to
as the
increase.
district itself continues to grow in property value,
Right,
then that levy gets spread across that.
Across
If
more.
it declines, then you have a tendency to see more levy on to go up, even if it declines. So it's really in how it's spread across properties.
okay,
And that's determined by the county auditor.
right, okay.
So
I
you
just-
set the levy.
You know, the headline might say, oh, Prior Lake School Board raises levy by 1 point, whatever.
Right,
You know, and everyone goes, oh my God, my taxes are gonna go up. Well, no, they're not.
right. And
I
I
mean, I
think
think that's
people
why-
were to look at, even last year, they probably saw as each year.
I had mine went down. I mean, yeah,
And even though your value was
Right.
increasing of your
Right.
home value.
And you said you anticipate it to be more like 1.25%.
Yes, I do.
but you're asking for this 1 point.
I'm asking for the maximum right now, so that allows for those adjustments to happen if there is any at the state level.
Yeah, and you're saying the maximum right now is 1
And
point.
1.88 is the maximum, and I do anticipate by December, once we've
Right,
completed all the processes for the refunding and the leases, that it'll go down somewhere around that 1.2 to 1.25.
great, thank you.
Jonathan?
Answered.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do.
Mary?
So we certify the levy. If there's a change next year at all in property values or anything like that, this will not be reverted, anything. We'll just catch up with it the following year, right?
Right, so that's a great question, because like last year, our student population isn't as high as we anticipated this year. Well, we determined that last year, so I'm estimating our student population. So actually, part of our reduction this year is because we have less of a student population, so they're already doing adjustments, what they call
Right.
adjustments, in this levy for next year,
Based on the new number.
based on the numbers we
Right.
have this year. So they're going down.
Any other
That's
questions?
not necessarily a good thing for our
I know.
budget.
Right, I get that.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the levy certification at 1.88?
So made.
A
Second.
maximum.
Maximum?
Please approve the maximum.
Say maximum.
I should know that.
But it is estimated to be, at this point, 1.88%.
Approving the maximum.
By Stacy,
Second.
second by Mary. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 6-0. Thank you. And I will take a motion to adjourn
So
this
moved.
meeting. By Melissa, second by
Second.
Michael. All those in favor say aye. That motion carries 6-0. This meeting is adjourned, and we will go into closed session.